Hey everyone, and welcome to the Tom's Hardware Podcast for today, December 29th, 2020. As always, I'm Tom's Hardware Editor-in-Chief, Avram Pelch, and I am joined today, as always, by Associate Editor Les Pounder, Raspberry Pi expert Ash Puckett, and today's special guest, my son, Isaac, who's 8 years old and will talk to us about about the best Raspberry Pi kits for kids. Hi, Isaac. You can unmute now.
Hi.
Hi.
Howdy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, what do you think was your favorite Raspberry Pi project that you and I did together this year?
The album tank.
Very cool. We will get to that. We will get to that in a minute. But that is one of our latest projects. Isaac and I have been doing Raspberry Pi projects together for a long time, and we thought this week, especially this is the week that he and I are doing a lot of projects together, would be a great time for us to talk about some of the cool things that you as a parent can do to share Raspberry Pi with your kids and what the tips are. So first, of course, you got to choose what type of Raspberry Pi kit you want to get. You can get a plain Raspberry Pi board, and you can set it up. There are many articles on how to do this, but in my view, the real fun from the Raspberry Pi comes from using the GPIO for physical computing. I should stay unmuted now while we're talking about this, okay? So anyway, so there's a couple of different kinds of kits you can get. The first is just to get a pre-built computer. So Isaac, what is this?
That is the Raspberry Pi 400.
Yes. So what did you like about the Raspberry Pi 400?
You don't have to have the Raspberry Pi board separate and then plugged into the keyboard.
You stay unmuted because we're going to talk. Why don't you stay unmuted because we're going to talk a bit. So,
okay.
But the disadvantage of this is great, but the disadvantage, of course, is that you can't easily put a hat on it. But hey, the good news is that as Les has shown, you can get something called a flat hat. Was it the flat hat hacker hat?
The flat hat hacker hat.
The flat hat hacker hat.
Bless you.
Yes, and that will allow you to easily attach hats to it, which is really important. So this is a neat one. Speaking of full computers, what's this? What's this, Isaac?
The Crow Pi.
So this
the
is
the Elecro Crow Pi 2.
All right. So this here, what does this do?
Oh, it would be similar to a laptop, but it's Raspberry Pi 4. But there's Raspberry Pi 4 inside, and you can take off the keyboard, and there's lots of electronic components under there they can program to do stuff. Like, for example, there's a port for servo to plug in the servo motor, a port to plug in a stepper motor, yeah, all kinds of stuff. There's even an LED matrix under there and buttons under there with symbols they can then. There's a tutorial how to program them to turn into a calculator.
Right. So the cool thing about this, the Elecro Crow Pi 2, is that it has all the light sensors, a lot of light sensors and motors built in, and then built-in tutorials for it to really help you. It even has an RFID scanner. It's not great as a laptop; doesn't even come standard with a battery, but it's a neat learning tool, and it costs around $300, so it's kind of expensive, but at least it has all the lights, motors, and sensors that you need to get started built in. Now, of course, that's one kind of thing, but the type of Raspberry Pi kit that we like best are the robots. So, for one example, Isaac, show them our favorite robot right now.
Okay, it's this big baby, the Yaboom tank.
Wow.
Yes. So tell them about what the Yaboom tank does. Obviously, you have to bring your own Raspberry Pi, but besides that, what does it come with?
well, it comes with the tank treads, the gears and stuff. So it drives around on these tank treads, and then it can move this ultrasonic sensor, and then this camera mount, if it was fixed, it'd be like a little bigger and it'd rotate around. I'd be able to do object recognition and stuff. Then there's a servo to move this ultrasonic sensor, and then it can obviously do obstacle avoidance. Then it has a line following sensor right here. And then it has this battery that I'm touching, and then has these motors in the back, and then it can even has a buzzer.
Yeah, so it has a lot of
Yeah.
features. We kind of drove it off a table, so we got to fix the acrylic part on the top that holds the camera, but it can use OpenCV to do image recognition, which is pretty cool. One of the nice things you'll notice about that tank is that it's primarily aluminum, and that's one of my tips is if you can get something that's metal, you should, because acrylic breaks really easily, but most things are acrylic. Speaking of acrylic robots, what's this robot right here, Isaac?
The SDS Pi.
All right, so what does this do?
It drives around on its wheels. You can see its live camera view for its camera, and it lights up, and it can even and you can it even, and I think that it even has touch sensors too.
Yes. Now, to be fair, the kit itself is $22 and about $22, and you get just the acrylic and the case, and you get the wheels and the motors. Then you can bring your own hat to control them, which we use the Pimoroni Explorer Hat Pro because this whole thing is from Pimoroni. You got to bring your own Raspberry Pi and your own cylindrical battery here to fit in the back. But it's a really neat and inexpensive kit that we really like. Really simple. Doesn't really come with a lot of software. You gotta find it and make it happen, which is cool. Obviously, those are just a couple of kinds of robots. You can also make a robot that looks like an arm. So here we have one that we made. What is this, Isaac?
The Me Arm.
Yeah. So the Me Arm is kind of a neat project. The only problem is, once again, you got to be really careful with plastic because when we were screwing this, one of the things that holds it cracked. So anything with acrylic is very delicate, and you got to be really careful with screwing. But you can see this type of robot can be kind of neat for doing robot arm pickups. So that's neat. Finally, the other kind of thing that you can get for your kids to play with, the other kind of things you get for your kids to play with is a more kind of full-fledged IoT kit that makes things that are not exactly robots. So what is this, Isaac?
The Keyboard, which is a keyboard you can program to run snippets and macros on it, to light up and run snippets and macros on your computer when you press different keys on it.
So this was kind of neat because it comes with this is another Pimoroni kit, comes with a Raspberry Pi Zero W, and you can set it up as a keyboard. We have another couple of Pimoroni kits that we got. One that creates the Scrollbot, which is like a scrolling billboard, and one that's the Mood Light, which is RGB, and they make a radio that you can build. So they have a lot of really neat things there, which are good to build with kids and really easy. And then, obviously another thing you could do is just kind of freelance it a bit and just get hats that do cool things. So what hat is this?
The unicorn hat, which what's so cool about it is it's entirely an LED matrix.
Yeah, so this was cool because we've used it to program all kinds of things. And then
No, it's not the unicorn. That's the Unicorn Hat HD. My mistake.
Yes, it's because the HD version. And then of course there's this hat that viewers of the show have seen before, which hat is this?
The Braincraft hat.
And what kinds of projects have we done with this?
Projects that include artificial intelligence and one of them was object recognition, and it showed results on the screen.
Yes, so it's kind of cool. You can use the screen. Use obviously Adafruit's tutorials really help. It's got built-in microphone, output for speakers, a joystick. So it's good for doing for kind of prototyping and learning about machine learning, which is key. So I mean, overall, I think our tips for choosing the right Raspberry Pi kit for your kid are go for physical computing, things that let you use the GPIO pins either with a hat or a robot, because otherwise you're really missing the magic of Raspberry Pi, which is the physical computing. Otherwise, you can just teach your kid to program on a PC, which you probably have around. The other is acrylic is really fragile, so be really careful with it, or try to get robots that are metal if you can. Focus on standard programming languages. One of the things that was really important to me as a parent is not to give him just training wheels that he can't learn to ride. So the real key is he's learning to program in Python. What are the languages now that you can program in, Isaac?
Lua, Python, Scratch, Blockly, and I forget what, and JavaScript, and and if there's multiple languages I know, then I can't remember what they are.
Okay, well that's a pretty good. That's a pretty good set, and he knows some HTML. So like those are all standards, particularly when you can advance a kid to programming in text, like with Python, instead of it with blocks, I think is really good as long as your kid can read. You just really never underestimate what a child can do. You know, he now teaches me things like I had a problem the other day and he was like, "Oh, Dad, I found the answer on Stack Overflow for you." So you know, I think that's what's really important is just be patient. Don't underestimate what your kids can do. Be prepared as the adult though to do some of the tasks that kids can't do or shouldn't do at this age, like soldering or things that involve fine motor skills like screwing a tight screw. So those are kind of our overall tips for picking out stuff you can do with your kids. By the way, I want to point out, as always, that our chat rooms are open. So if anybody has any questions or comments, please chime in, and we'll answer them. So this was a pretty big year for projects and for Pi overall. Ash, what are some of the things that some of the cool things that happened with Pi this year?
Okay, we've seen a lot of cool stuff come out from the Raspberry Pi team this year, not just Raspberry Pi products, but accessories too. And I'm going to list the biggest ones that I found in order that they came out, not in any order of excitement. So the first thing I wanted to show off is the high quality camera. This is the camera lens that came out earlier this year, and it was a step up or an upgrade, if you will, to the existing Raspberry Pi camera module. It's 12 megapixels, and I think it released at about a $50 price point. And I know that this has already been used in just a plethora of projects across the internet from, I know we saw like some neat telescope projects and things like that. And I think, Les, don't you have one? Because you did the review for it.
HQ camera?
Yeah.
I have got one, yes. It's in the box to my left.
That's great.
Absolutely cracking camera.
Hey, there we go. Everyone's got one for us. So that was the first thing. And then shortly after that, we saw the Raspberry Pi 400, which Isaac is lucky enough to get to play with, as well as Les. I know he's got one too. And like we already kind of covered that earlier, it's a Raspberry Pi inside of a keyboard. It's pretty amazing, and it was a wicked callback to some old school computing, I think. And then we got the Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4, which is all of the goodness of a Raspberry Pi 4 crammed into a much smaller form factor. And we've seen some people use that to, like on the carrier board. I know we've seen people get, was it Jeff Geerling that got the GPU to work? I don't know. There's been.
Yes, Jeff. Well, he tried to get a GPU to work. It didn't. Still not working yet.
So close. So close. So that's been exciting. And then the last thing that I found was the IQ audio hats have been added to the Raspberry Pi umbrella. So this is from a third-party business. They developed their own audio-based hats and boards to work with the Raspberry Pi, a couple different Pi modules, and now they're officially distributed under the Raspberry Pi distribution channels. I don't know if any of us have had a chance to take a look at those. Have you guys seen those yet?
No, I've not had one in my hand yet. I'm hoping to get one soon to have a play with and see what they're like.
And beyond that, I might be missing some things. Do you guys know of anything that I might have missed that's come out this year from the Raspberry Pi team?
I mean, I think there's been some really neat accessories that have come out. For example, I think the Braincraft hat is a good one. We named that Raspberry Pi accessory of the year for Tom's Hardware. Les, you reviewed a lot of cool things. What are some of the ones that you've tested this year that you think really stand out?
Oh, there are lots of great things, and this is a placeholder while I just think of one. There's so many things I've been looking at this year that are so interesting. I think for me, it's the plethora of hats that have come out that have added to what you can do with Raspberry Pi. So the stuff that you can break out to machine learning, such as Braincraft hat, that's a fantastic piece of kit. The Breakout Garden from Pimoroni, such a simple concept, a hat which has 6 breakout boards on top of it, so breakout slots on top of it, which are I2C connection or SPI connections directly to Raspberry Pi. And you buy the modules that you need and insert them to build your own project. So you can have a thermal camera, let's see, I've got one just on the side of my desk here to look at. It's the next review I'm going to be doing. A GPS breakout. So this little board just goes straight in. Can I get it to the camera?
Yeah.
So I'm going to open the packet, yeah? It just plugs straight in to the board. You run some software to configure it, and away you go. There's no soldering, and you can chop and change all of these different boards to build whatever you want.
That is neat.
Yeah, that's neat. That's on our to order list. We're ordering a bunch of breakout boards. Isaac and I were actually going over which ones he particularly wants to play with, because it's like so many. I could just get them all. Really cool. So also there were some really neat projects that came out. There's some really neat projects from the community that came out this year, and we wanted to talk about what some of people's, each of us here picked our three favorites. So why don't we start with you, Isaac, and we'll talk about what your favorite projects of the year were.
Yeah, sure. They're pretty advanced.
So what were they? So I'm going to share my screen here actually, so we can take a look at some of them.
So there's the matrix painting one.
Yeah. So here, this was one that we had on the show, where you can use the RGB, the LED matrix, not only to play games, which is something that we're trying to actually replicate here at home, but to do touchscreen painting, which was absolutely really cool. We demonstrated that in an early episode of the podcast. You also really like this one, right?
Yeah, the Mario Kart Live one.
What is it that you liked about it?
That includes a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, so I think Surrogate TV, which we've had them on our show before, is really cool. They have a lot of things where you can do. They have the robots, the remote control cars. They're in their office in Finland, and you can control it from anywhere in the world. And so, it's really neat. They've created this great augmented reality game where you can race people on Mario Kart Live, and the cars in their office, but you're wherever you are around the world. And then finally, I know you really like this project, Isaac. Can you tell us about it?
Oh, right. Wait, what was it called again? I forget.
So this is a streaming handheld that lets you stream PC games to a Raspberry Pi handheld that you hold. And what is it that you liked about this one?
It looked like a Nintendo Switch is 3D printed, and you play games on it.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Hard to beat that. So since we're sharing my screen, I'll just talk about my favorite 3. So I really loved Ahad Kove's self-driving garbage can. We had there's a great video of it that he has on YouTube. He came on our show as a guest and talked about this. He used the Raspberry Pi to control it, but then he also used a Jetson Xavier board to do really great image recognition, where it knows when the when the garbage truck is coming down his block, it detects exactly that garbage truck and not the recycle truck, and will then drive this, open the garage door of his garage and drive this out to be picked up. So a really, really cool use of both robotics and image recognition. Speaking of great robotics, I absolutely loved the tic-tac-toe robot that we showed a couple weeks ago. This is just amazing from the 3D Printed Life channel on YouTube. I just love the way that he put this together. The robot talks to you and tries to talk to you, but I just love the motors, how he built the arm with the motors for this. I just thought was really, really impressive. And then finally, here's one I know that Isaac also would have maybe put on his list, which is the Minecraft RGB sign, which lights up depending on which of your friends is online. You can see and then go in. That's something he's always doing in Minecraft, wondering when his friends are online. But Ash, what were some of your favorite projects?
Oh goodness, I've been on a Stargate kick lately, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I absolutely adore this Stargate project. It was made by Christian Ticey. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've got a quick little video demo that shows how it works, but it's got a dial that you can press the button on and it activates the Stargate, which is 3D printed, totally controlled by a Raspberry Pi. You see the gate starts spinning as the code gets dialed in, and it actually uses audio from the show. So once the portal turns on, you'll hear audio clips from Stargate, and it activates some LEDs to make an infinity mirror effect, and it stays on for 38 minutes until you turn it off. And the 38 minutes is that timing actually comes from the show. And it's just so neat. It's so creative. They had to paint this figurine. It's not just enough to design and print it, but they painted it to look real. It looks so good. It's just so cool. I had to throw this one in there.
Really nice.
It is clean. And the other one I wanted to show off, I know we already had one surrogate project, so I can't help it. This is the one that I found that introduced us to surrogate.tv. It was the toilet paper claw machine project, where people could go online on their website, just like the Mario Kart game, and you could drive the claw machine, stand in line for your turn, and if you won a roll of toilet paper, they would actually mail you toilet paper. And it was during the height of the beginning of this pandemic stuff, and I like to call it the Great Toilet Paper Famine of 2020. So the timing of this project was just perfect, and I think it picked up some spirits during a time when nobody knew what was really going on. And then after that, I've got this one was from yesterday. I thought it was just too cool. I had to show it off today. It's I hope I say this right, the Limatech Discmaster, and it's they call it a VCR, I guess, because it's a Raspberry Pi device that plays movies, but it doesn't use VHS tapes. It uses a floppy disk. And for a demo, they managed to put all of Shrek onto a single floppy. And we can't even begin to fathom the amount of compression it took to put Shrek onto a floppy. I think it's like 1.37 megabytes.
Wait a second. I have a question here for Isaac. Isaac, have you ever seen a floppy disk before?
I'm not sure because I don't even know what a floppy disk is.
Well, hard drives are hard, right? Floppy disks are floppy.
Yeah, so, that's okay because no one has used one since a long time before he was born.
He's probably seen save icons on computers.
Yes, that look like that.
Uh-huh.
But yes, I think he forgot that I told him about floppy disks because it's not a very interesting story. So Les, what were your favorite projects of the year?
The three that stick in my mind most clearly are, well, first of all, I'll try and pronounce this correctly, the Payunora, which was a breakout board, infinity mode set. There we go. It's a Compute Module 4 squeezed into an Arduino form factor, hence the headline just above on the screen.
I think yours is a little backwards.
Is it? Oh, that'd be why. Let me just change that really quickly. Or you can read it all backwards. Don't
It's
you
a
love
good
technology?
challenge to read. Oh, there we go.
There we go. So it's an Arduino form factor. So the standard Arduino Uno R3 layout that we all know and love. But inside of there is a compute module 4, so a Raspberry Pi 4, effectively. And Timon, who designed it, was on the show a couple of weeks ago. Brilliant piece of kit. It's a completely self-designed board. It's one of a number of iterations that he's done to create this form factor, and it just packs so much in. So we have a compute module 4 slap bang in the center. You can put any CM4 module you wish on there. A single USB port, HDMI, a full-size HDMI, which I'm quite impressed with. I'm not too keen on micro HDMI. USB-C for power. We have analog inputs on there, something which a Pi does not have on the GPIO. So we have an analog digital converter built into the board. And on the other side of it, hidden away, we have a PCIe slot. So we can insert something like Google's Coral TPU, the tensor processing unit, or possibly, I need to confirm this, we can insert some NVMe hard drives and actually have this tiny Raspberry Pi package booting from a hard drive at super fast speeds. And just because we all love blinkies, he managed to squeeze in some APA 102 RGB LEDs on there because blinkies are great.
Yeah,
So
I know Isaac is excited about that. I showed him that one because he wants to find more ways to use Arduino together with Raspberry Pi.
Definitely. The two are made for each other. A lot of people will say, which is the best board, Raspberry Pi or Arduino? There's no competition. They are both brilliant boards. They both excel in their own way. So use them together to do some great things. So the next project I want to move on to is something still holiday themed. It's the end of the holiday season, but we can still have a bit of fun. Someone managed to squeeze an entire NES console into a NES Christmas ornament.
Bonus points for the prison TV. The clear CRT.
Yeah.
That's slick.
It's something that you could only do with Raspberry Pi, really. It's really silly to build it, but it's something that we'll do because we like doing stuff like this. So this NES ornament is tiny. It's to go on your Christmas tree to celebrate the holidays. This person has put a Raspberry Pi Zero inside and has broken out the composite connections from the board. They are still there. They're not present as a port, but you can solder your own connections on. And I've broken it out to work with a television. So you can play Contra on your Christmas tree, which is great. So I like Contra. It's really hard.
It's a good
project. Brilliant project. But the one that's got me the most interested this year, and it sounds very biased because I wrote the article, but is this portable Raspberry Pi screen. So we've all got tablets knocking around in the house. We've got Android tablets from a few years ago that are now pretty much useless because they're not updated. With this and a £10, roughly $15 USB dongle, you can convert a tablet into a portable screen for your Pi. The dongle, and I'll just switch to the main camera now so you can see me. These are the dongles. They are simple USB dongles. And at one end, you have HDMI. And the other end, we have USB. You just plug in the output from your Pi into there, plug these into your Android tablet using the adapters, download a free app from the Android store, and away you go. You've got your own portable Pi setup. So we've set it up in the pictures. Let's go back to there now with a Pi 400. So all of that can fit in a really small case, and you can take it with you, so you can hack on the go. And it's using equipment that you've got lying around doing nothing that could go to landfill or be recycled, but you can reuse it for this project. It's awesome, and it only costs you $15.
Yeah, that is a great use. So speaking of things that are fun to play, like
there's one problem. It's $820.59.
Don't. Yeah, don't worry about that. We keep going. Isaac. Anyway, so Les, tell us about. Speaking of playing games, you this week have had some time to put together a new Picade, right?
Yeah. So normally behind me on the shelf, you will see a Picade on previous shows, and it's been running a Raspberry Pi 3 for many years now. How long's it been out? About 4 years, 3 years. And I recently took part in the Pimmeroni Black Friday sales because you really have to. And I bought some kits. Yeah, you have to buy something there. I think it's the law in England. I'm not too sure. I need to check it. But so I bought some stuff. So I bought myself a Piecade X board, and that's inside of my Piecade. I'm going to go to a slideshow and briefly talk over it. So there's the Piecade X, and there's the Raspberry Pi 4 next to it. And I've got a Pimmeroni fan shim on there as well to keep the Pi 4 cool. All of this is crammed inside my Piecade, which is on my left-hand side right now. And it has USB boot enabled, so it boots super fast. So the Pi is cool. It boots really quickly from USB. And I can plug it into this wonderful arcade machine. So I can actually show you that arcade machine running now because here it is, and hopefully it's the right way around.
So you just put the internals with the new bits you got?
Yeah, so here is the old brains of that Piecade.
Well, what are you going to do with that one?
In fact, hey, this is Piecade X as well, but it's not USB-C. I don't know. Stick it in another. I have another Piecade in the loft.
There you go.
Lovely. There you go. So I might upgrade that one. That one's running a Pi 2, if I remember rightly. And it's got some custom LED buttons that I did many moons ago.
Oh, those are good.
They do look really nice and shiny. So what you're seeing now is actually live from my Piecade. So now I click the joystick across, and I think you can hear the click.
Yeah.
These are the games that I've installed on my machine. I'm going to quickly fire one up. So you can see, oh, look, it's gone straight to Aliens. Isn't that handy? That's my favourite arcade game, by the way. So it's amazing. I've got all these games on here ready to play. It weighs nothing. It fits on a bookshelf behind me. And it also looks really cute as well now. And it runs really fast. So I can emulate up to PlayStation 1 era. So I have some PS1 games on here as well. And it does emulate them rather well. So right now you can't hear any audio from the games, but you're going to hear them play. Can you?
Yeah.
It's not showing on the output on OBS. That's unusual. Okay.
Unless someone behind me is also playing Aliens, but I doubt it.
If there's an alien behind you, I suggest you run.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of this, Isaac, you and I have a Piecade. What do you think?
I think the Piecade's awesome.
What's your favorite game to play on the Piecade?
Well, I really do love playing the Mario games, so I'd say Super Mario Brothers.
Classic. It's hard to go wrong with Mario.
Yeah, so definitely the Pimmeroni Piecade is a lot of fun. So one last thing we wanted to talk about. We always try to do a tutorial toward the end of the show, and so Isaac we want to talk about setting up an easy way to control your robot. So
I need that.
So Isaac, what are we using? Can you show everyone the robot again that we're controlling? Also going to share my screen, but so what's that for those who tune in late?
The Yaboom tank.
Yeah, so the Yaboom tank uses Raspberry Pi 4, and I guess you could use a 3 with it, but you shouldn't because it's supposed to do AI. And if we look at this, if we now look full screen at this screen here, what are we looking at? What does this do?
Make it drive.
Right. So we used so this here is a web interface that we programmed and that Isaac programmed, and it goes, and what it does is it allows you to drive the robot directly just by clicking any of these links because it activates something in Python. So let's take a quick look at what it's actually doing. So
first you should show it working.
Okay. Yes, you're right. So I guess you got to put it on the floor, and you'll hear it working.
I did already.
Okay. Okay. Stop. I want to drive it into something.
Now do right, left, backward, stop.
Okay. as you can see, the URL changed.
Stop!
Okay, stop.
It's
So
crashing into the couch.
yeah, that's what the problem is. We don't have the camera set up.
Move forward.
Okay, all right.
Stop!
Okay, so let's talk about the code though, right? So in
I
the
want
code,
to share my screen.
oh, we got to share it here. So anyway,
Okay.
so this uses, what does this use? So Isaac, what did we use to create the script and how does it work?
So we use a Python library called Flask. It's doing from Flask, import Flask, render template, and that's to import Flask. Import robot is just so it will make import the movements of the robot. That Flask certainly is important. Then you do the set for the robot here. In this case, it's robot.init, and then app dot roots. And then at that root thing, you definitely have to put the definition index where it has robot.forward. You put the forward action where it says robot that's been left. You do whatever that's to make the robot spin left. Then where it says robot that's been right, you put whatever you have to put to make it robot spin to the right. And then finally, robot that break, which you do whatever you do to make your robot stop moving. Then robot the back, you do whatever you do to make the robot go back. Then here's the part return index.html, which is the HTML code. If name equals this actually initiate. Then the part at the bottom initiates what it's initiates it.
Right. So using Flask, which is a common Python library. Whoa, did it shut down? Only because we're demoing. But anyway, we got to the end. So using Flask, which is a common Python library, Isaac was able to program it so that it creates that web interface, and then it uses the robot library, which is something that he created that or got, we got from Yaboom and put together those functions to run this robot. But it'll be different depending on what you use. Anyway, that's all the time we have now. But I just wanted to remind everyone that the Tom's Hardware podcast is every Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. British time. You can find us on YouTube, on Facebook, and please, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with what we're doing. And we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
See you later.
Bye.